You know how some stories just feel different? They crawl under your skin, stay with you longer than they should, like shadows that don't move with the light. That's how this one begins. Not with blood, not with screaming, but with a silence too heavy for a child to carry. Her name was Eloisa, 16, skin like sunburned rice paper, eyes that always looked tired, like she had been seeing things no one else could. She lived at the edge of a dying town in a weather-worn hut with rusted iron sheets for a roof. The kind of place where rain didn't just fall, it punched. The water would pour through the holes above her mat, turning her dreams to mud. Her father had been gone since she was 8. Her mother, well, she was still there physically, but her mind had long disappeared behind blank stares and muttered prayers. Eloisa survived by washing clothes for neighbors who barely paid her. She carried water from the creek, fetched rice from the leftover market scraps, and avoided the attention of anyone who wore perfume, because in her world, the sweet-smelling ones were always the cruelest. But what truly made Eloisa different wasn't her poverty. It was the thing no one else talked about, the strange events that always followed her. Like how the streetlights near her home would flicker even when there was no wind, or how cats would gather outside her door at midnight, sitting still like stone sentinels, staring. Or how, once, when she was 9, her fever reached such a height that the rosary on her chest melted into her skin, leaving a scar shaped like a teardrop. Still, she never told anyone. Who would believe a girl who couldn't even afford slippers? Only one person knew everything. Mina. Mina was her best friend since first grade. Always laughing. Always loud. Always the brave one. Mina was the kind of girl who would slap a snake with a slipper if it hissed at her. But even she had begun noticing things she couldn't explain. Like how Eloise's reflection in the mirror sometimes didn't move with her. Or how they both once walked past a beggar who suddenly whispered, "She carries the scent of the between worlds." They laughed nervously back then. But deep down, Mina knew something was wrong. It wasn't just superstition. It was something older, something darker, and it was getting stronger. One afternoon, just as the sun dipped behind the mountains like a dying eye, Eloisa and Mina walked home together from the market. They had a short moment of joy, a pack of old boiled corn they'd bargained for cheap. For once, they were full, and the sun bathed everything in a golden glow. They laughed as they crossed the old wooden bridge until Eloisa stopped, dead still. Ahead of them, in the middle of the bridge, stood an old woman, not moving, not blinking, wearing a funeral veil, black as coal. No one else was around. No footsteps, no wind. Eloisa grabbed Mina's arm. "Tight. Don't speak," she whispered. Mina, usually full of chatter, obeyed. They tried to walk past the woman without looking at her. But just as they passed, a chill swept through them, and Eloisa heard a voice not from the outside world, but from somewhere inside her own bones. "Your blood remembers, child." When she turned around, the bridge was empty. No woman, no sound, nothing. They ran. Neither of them said a word the rest of the way. That night, Eloisa dreamed of mirrors. Thousands of them, stretching into the darkness. In each one, she saw herself but wrong. Some were smiling too wide, some crying blood, some just staring back, unmoving. And behind each reflection, something waited, watching. In the days that followed, small things began to change. Birds flew in strange patterns above her house. A newborn goat near their hut was born with 2 eyes on one side of its head. And Eloisa began waking up with mud on her feet, even though she hadn't left her mat. Mina tried to brush it off. "Maybe you're sleepwalking," she offered with a shaky smile. But even her jokes were losing their warmth. Then came the whispers. Not from people, from places, walls, trees, the floor beneath her feet. Soft hisses in Tagalog and other tongues she had never heard before, yet somehow understood. The door is opening. The air has awakened. Don't trust the light. Eloisa started losing time. She'd blink and find herself on the roof, or in the rice fields. Once, she woke up near the church ruins 3 towns away, her hands covered in red dust. Yet her mother never noticed. She just sat in her corner, whispering prayers to saints no longer pictured in her Bible. Something was coming, and Eloisa could feel it, like a storm pressing against her lungs. Then one evening, when everything should have been normal, Mina didn't show up. They were supposed to meet near the creek, share jackfruit candy, talk about boys they didn't like, laugh at the world. But she never came. Eloisa waited until the moon had fully risen. Still no sign. She began walking toward Mina's house. The road was darker than usual, the lamps blinking unnaturally. She felt cold, though the air was still. As she passed the broken fence by the abandoned well, something caught her eye. There, at the edge of the grass, was Mina's slipper. Just one, torn at the strap, still warm to the touch. And beside it, a trail of burnt footprints leading into the forest. But there was no fire, no smell, only silence. And something else, a breath. Close, too close. Eloisa turned and saw herself standing beneath the trees. Same face, same body, but not her. Not really. The other Eloisa was smiling, but her mouth was far too wide. And her eyes, they glowed like coals that had never known mercy. And that's where the first story begins. You think you're ready? You think you've heard everything? This is only the first of 20 true stories so disturbing, so real, so deeply cursed. Most viewers couldn't even finish them. But you're still here, aren't you? Let's see how long you last. Stay close. Hold your breath. And don't look away. Not even once. Eloisa stood frozen, heart pounding so hard she couldn't hear anything else, except the sound of her own breathing. No, not her. That thing under the tree, it only looked like her. But the smile was too wide, the skin too pale, and the way it tilted its head like a hungry cat watching a cornered mouse. Then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just silence, and that slipper in her hand. Eloisa turned and ran, all the way back home, all the way through the thickening night, as if the shadows behind her were chasing, stretching long and clawed. She slammed the door, locked the windows, and sat trembling beside her mother, who, as always, stared blankly into nothing. That night, Eloisa didn't sleep, not because of fear, she was used to fear, but because something deep in her gut had changed. A whisper without words, telling her the time of pretending was over. Whatever was haunting her, it was no longer hiding. The next day, Eloisa made a decision. She went to the one place no one dared visit after dark, the old house by the mango grove. Abandoned since before she was born, people said a Mangkukulam used to live there. They said curses were buried in the soil, and spirits still walked the halls. But Eloisa didn't care. She needed answers. She needed to know who, or what, was trying to take her face and where Mina had gone. As she pushed through the broken wooden gate, the air shifted. The heat became thick, heavy, almost wet. The leaves didn't move, even when the wind passed. Inside the house, it smelled of earth and old herbs. And there, sitting on the floor, surrounded by dried leaves and burnt candles, was a man. He was ancient, his skin like old leather, his eyes white as river stones. But when he opened his mouth, his voice echoed from every wall. You finally came, Anik Ingalone, child of the wave. Eloisa didn't understand, but somehow she didn't feel afraid. The old man smiled. I'm Apo Daggett, he said. Once they called me a healer, then they called me cursed. But you're the reason I waited. He reached behind him and pulled out something wrapped in banana leaves. Slowly, he unwrapped it, revealing a strange shell. It looked like a kabibi, but glowing softly from inside. The surface shimmered with gold veins, and at its center was a single red speck, like dried blood. "This is your Mutya," Apo Daggett said, "and your burden." He placed it in her hands. The moment her skin touched it, her body shuddered. Visions flashed behind her eyes, of blood in the river, fire in the sky, and a woman screaming under the full moon. Eloisa dropped it, gasping. But Apo Daggett only nodded. "It's waking now, because they know you're close to remembering." She asked him what was happening, what the thing in the woods was, why she was seeing things. The answer came like a knife. "Because your blood was never clean. A long time ago, before the rice fields, before the missionaries, before even the written word, there were two bloodlines that ruled the land. The Bante, protectors of life, and the Amino, feeders of flesh. Eloisa's ancestors were Bante, warriors, healers, watchers of the sea. But one of them, her great-great-grandmother, broke the sacred law. She fell in love with an Amino, not a man, but a shapeshifter, an aswang. Their child was cursed, not fully human, not fully dark, just between. And every few generations, one would be born again, carrying both light and shadow. Half watchers, half devourers. Eloisa was the next. That's why the mirrors hated her. That's why spirits followed her. That's why the other Eloisa had come. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a demon. It was her other half, the Amino inside, finally awake. And it wanted full control. She didn't believe it at first. Who would? But Apo Daggett showed her. He pressed the Mutya to her chest. And suddenly, she saw through time. She saw her grandmother, young and beautiful, summoning wind with a chant. She saw her mother, crying in a river, blood trailing between her legs. She saw the day her father left, not because he abandoned them, but because something in her mother had terrified him. Eloisa fell to her knees, dizzy. So many secrets, so many lies. Apo Daggett placed his wrinkled hand on her shoulder. "You are not evil, Anik, but you were chosen for something most cannot bear." He told her of the coming rise. The Amino clan, powerful aswangs hiding among humans, were gathering strength. Soon, they would no longer pretend. They'd take villages, infiltrate cities, eat the forgotten, breed in the shadows. Only a Bante-blooded heir could stop them. And unfortunately, Eloisa was the last. But the worst part? The thing that took Mina was just the beginning. Eloisa left that house with shaking legs and a pounding heart. The Mutya was now bound to her. It pulsed softly when she held it. She didn't know if it gave her power or cursed her more. But something inside her had shifted. That night, she tried to tell her mother. But the woman only stared, then whispered, "I told your Lola we should have drowned you." And just like that, everything inside Eloisa collapsed. The betrayal, the loneliness, the pressure. She wasn't a hero. She didn't want this. She just wanted Mina back. But she couldn't run anymore. The training began the next day. Every morning, she returned to Apo Daggett's hut, learning old chants, movements of the hands, ways to draw symbols that glowed with light when her blood touched them. She bathed in salt water, burned guava leaves, learned to sense when spirits were near. She learned how to resist the calling, the hunger that came at night, the temptation to step into shadows and forget who she was. But the Amino inside, it whispered louder each day. "Let me take over. We can be strong together. She's not dead yet. You can still taste her." Eloisa screamed into pillows, bit her hand until it bled, clutched the Mutya until it burned her fingers. She would not give in, not yet. Then one night, while training near the creek, Apo Daggett suddenly stopped. His eyes glazed. His nose twitched. "The wind has changed," he said. And then he pushed Eloisa hard, right before a sharp stone came flying through the air, slicing into the tree behind them. From the darkness came a figure. Not quite human. Its arms were too long. Its skin gray. Its eyes pitch black, shining like wet tar. It smiled. "She's not ready," it hissed. "But we'll take her anyway." Eloisa raised the Mutya. It flickered, then dimmed. The creature lunged, and as it did, the trees around her screamed. The trees screamed, not with voices but with pain. The way they cracked, the way their leaves shivered and curled like burning paper, it felt alive. Eloisa stood frozen, the Mutya shaking in her hand, its glow flickering like a candle about to die. The creature that had lunged at her, whatever it was, now stood in the center of the clearing. Its limbs twitched as if they were remembering how to be human. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Its black eyes locked on her like a wolf stalking an injured doe. Oppo Daggett stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "You are not welcome here." The creature hissed. "You trained her, but you trained her too late." And then, without warning, it vanished into the trees, moving faster than anything she'd ever seen. Gone. Just like that. But Eloisa knew it wasn't over. That night, she couldn't sleep again. Not because of fear this time, but because of confusion. Pain. She kept thinking about what her mother had said. "We should have drowned you." That wasn't something a mother says out of anger. That was something planned. Remembered. All her life, Eloisa thought she was just poor, just unlucky. But now, every bad thing began to look different. Like pieces of a broken mirror, showing not just the world, but what was wrong with her. She wasn't just cursed. She was hated by the very people who should have protected her. The Mutya on her chest throbbed, gently, like a second heartbeat. Sometimes, when she touched it, she saw things again. Not memories. Warnings. A child screaming inside a bamboo basket. A river of teeth. A shadow walking in her house while her mother just stood and watched. She began to wonder, was her mother protecting her all this time or watching her? Waiting? And if so, what had she been waiting for? The next morning, Eloisa didn't go to training. She walked instead, past the creek, past the old tree where she and Mina used to tie ribbons and wishes, past the burned-out chapel where she first saw the mirror version of herself. She needed answers, not from Oppo Daggett, but from the person who had raised her. When she entered the hut, her mother didn't look up. Eloisa sat on the floor. The room smelled of damp earth and something metallic, rust, maybe, or blood. "Why didn't you tell me what I am?" she whispered. Her mother's lips moved, barely. "Because you were never meant to survive." Silence. Cold. Like all the warmth in the world had been sucked out. "Then why did I survive?" Eloisa asked, voice cracking. Her mother finally looked up, and in her eyes for the first time was something between shame and sorrow. "Because I failed," she said. "Your Lola tried to finish it. But I couldn't do it. I thought maybe you would be normal." She stood, weakly, walked to a small chest near the wall, and opened it. Inside was a bundle, wrapped in faded blue cloth. She handed it to Eloisa. Inside was a second Mutya, but this one was cracked, its glow barely alive. Around it, old black thread tied like a rosary. A broken charm. "It was your twins," her mother said. "But he didn't survive." Eloisa's breath caught. Twin? She had always felt something missing. A strange sadness she could never name. Her mother sat again, quietly. "You were the stronger one. He died in my arms. But when we buried him, the earth rejected him. The soil burned. Your Lola said it was a sign, that the darkness would come back through you." Eloisa clutched the broken Mutya. It pulsed once, then died. "I didn't want to believe them," her mother said, tears falling now. But the dreams began. The shadows. The animals killing themselves outside our door. And I knew she didn't finish. Eloisa stood up, her chest a storm. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just left. That afternoon, as she crossed the trail near the ravine, she saw something move in the trees. Not a creature, not an enemy, but a child. Naked, pale, with eyes too black for a human. Just standing there, between the trees, watching her. Eloisa froze. "Are you lost?" she asked gently. The child blinked slowly, then smiled. "They said you'd come." "Who?" The child pointed upward, and when Eloisa looked up, all she saw was a sky filled with wings, hundreds of blackbirds circling silently above them. She looked back down. The child was gone. But on the ground where it had stood was a handprint in the mud. 3 fingers. Too long. That night, Apo Daggett found her. "You missed training," he said. "I found my twins Mutya," she replied. "I saw the child." Apo Daggett nodded slowly, like he already knew. "The Amino are gathering," he said. "They want your soul split. They want your grief to open the gate." "What gate?" she asked. He looked at her gravely. "The one inside you. The one that keeps the old things sleeping." Then he handed her a dagger. Small, carved with symbols. The blade glowed faintly under moonlight. "You must start preparing not just to resist, but to fight." Eloisa took it. It was lighter than she expected. And for the first time, she felt something she hadn't before. Power. But the power came with a price. The more she trained, the less she slept. The more she resisted the Amino inside her, the more it whispered things that made sense. "She never loved you. The world fears you because they know you're better. Let go of them. Let me guide you." And each night, the reflections in her mirror grew more detailed, more real. One night, the mirror version of her didn't disappear. It stood still as Eloisa moved. Its lips curled up slowly. Then it raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. Eloisa, trembling, did the same. And in that moment, she felt the surface grow warm. The mirror wasn't glass anymore. It was a door. Now she walks the edge, between loyalty and vengeance, between the girl her mother tried to bury and the one the Amino want to awaken. She's not ready. She knows that. But ready or not, the dark is coming. And this time it doesn't knock. It crawls in while you sleep. The nights had grown heavier. Even the air felt different, thicker, colder, like it carried something unseen. Eloisa woke every morning with a weight on her chest, like someone had been sitting there, watching her sleep. The Mutya pulsed under her shirt, but its light dimmed with each passing day. Apo Daggett said it was reacting to the veil thinning, that the wall between this world and the other was beginning to crack. The gate inside her, the one they had warned about, it was opening, slowly but surely, and the Amino were getting bolder. Birds no longer chirped at dawn. Dogs howled longer than usual, eyes wide with fear. The river water turned murky black, even without rain. People in town whispered about children who went missing, goats born without eyes, and shadows that moved on their own. But none of them knew the truth. Only Eloisa. Only Mina. Yes, Mina had come back. Not the same as before, but alive. A week ago, just before the 3rd moon, Mina stumbled back into town barefoot, her eyes sunken, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. She didn't remember much, only flashes. The forest, a cold hand on her neck, voices chanting from deep underground. Eloisa cried when she saw her. She thought she had lost her forever. And even now, part of her still feared this might be a trick, another illusion from the Amino. But when she touched Mina's hand, she knew. Her friend had survived. Scarred, changed, but still fighting. They had very little time left. Apo Daggett gathered them both in the grove the next day. "There will be no second chance," he warned, drawing a circle of salt around them. "When the next full moon rises, the Amino will perform Pagdawid, a ritual that will permanently tear the veil. Once it's done, they won't need to hide anymore. They'll walk freely, feed freely." He placed 2 items in front of them. A dagger of bone for Eloisa, etched with protective symbols. A charm woven with black hair and dried leaves for Mina, something to shield her from possession. Tonight, he said, we prepare. Tomorrow, we strike. But how could Eloisa prepare for something like this? She still didn't understand half of what she was. The power inside her came in strange waves, sometimes like fire, sometimes like drowning. The Amino whispered to her more now. They no longer begged. They promised. Let us guide you. You are wasting your strength. You are one of us. They will never love you, no matter how many you save. Look at your mother. That voice hurt most. She had stopped speaking to her mother since that night. The silence between them became a wall she didn't want to touch. Part of her wanted to ask, wanted to scream, why? Why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you choose me? But another part was tired of answers. What mattered now was stopping the enemy, whatever the cost. That night, Eloisa sat with Mina under the old mango tree. The stars were out, but their light felt dull, like even the sky was afraid of what was coming. Mina leaned her head on Eloisa's shoulder. Do you think we'll make it? I don't know, Eloisa replied honestly. There was no use lying. They were two girls with charms and old blades, going against monsters who had waited generations to return. But Mina smiled anyway. At least I'm not alone this time. Eloisa swallowed the lump in her throat. They didn't need to say it out loud. They had always been alone, in poverty, in fear, in silence. But now they had each other, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Signs of the coming storm grew stronger the next day. Villagers reported hearing voices in the wells. The town priest fainted during Mass after seeing something in the church window that made him scream. Chickens were found with their insides reversed. A woman woke up with all her teeth gone, no blood, just gone. And near the edge of the town, a giant crack appeared in the soil, like something had clawed its way out from beneath. Eloisa felt it in her bones. They were gathering. She could sense their presence like a storm at sea. Somewhere deep in the forest, under the roots of the old trees, the Amino were singing. Their ritual had already begun. Apo Daggett gave them their final blessing, drew old marks on their skin, whispered chants lost to time, and then he vanished into the shadows. He has to close the back gate, Mina said. It's the only way to trap the leaders. Eloisa nodded, but her hands were cold. The Mutya around her neck flickered wildly now, like it didn't know whether to protect or flee. Her own blood was rebelling, torn between two legacies, light and shadow, human and monster, savior and destroyer. They entered the forest just after dusk. Every step forward felt heavier, like the earth itself was trying to hold them back. Fog rolled through the trees. The air reeked of iron and rotting flowers. Mina held a torch in one hand, dagger in the other. Eloisa kept her Mutya close, fingers brushing the symbols etched into its shell. And then the whispers started. Not in their heads this time, all around them. Voices coming from the trees, from under the leaves, from inside the wind. Turn back. You don't belong here. She will betray you. Mina looked at her. They're trying to split us. Eloisa nodded. She knew it was working. Every fear she had buried, every doubt she tried to kill, it rose like smoke. What if Mina wasn't really saved? What if Apo Daggett was just using her blood for his own goals? What if she was meant to join the Amino, not destroy them? Her legs felt weak. Her chest burned. Then she remembered Mina's voice under the tree. At least I'm not alone this time. No, not now. Eloisa pressed the Mutya to her chest. I choose who I become, she whispered. The forest shook. The ground cracked beneath their feet, and from mist ahead, something stepped out. It wasn't human. Its body was twisted, limbs jointed wrong. Its mouth stretched from ear to ear, filled with jagged teeth. Eyes like burning coal. One of the elders. a Tagabante ing ritual, guardian of the ritual path. They weren't just watchers. They fed on the fear of those who trespassed. Mina screamed as the creature lunged. Eloisa raised her blade, and the Mutya exploded with light. Not warmth, not safety, but fire. Pure, ancient fire. The creature recoiled. They had one chance now, just one path forward. But this was only the first guardian, and the true enemy still waited beneath the soil. The creature screamed as the Mutya's fire struck its chest, sending waves of heat that melted the fog and lit the forest in a soft, flickering glow. Eloisa's heart pounded like a drum inside her ribs. Her arm ached from holding the blade, but her grip stayed firm. Mina stood beside her, panting, eyes wide with terror, but not backing down. They had survived the first guardian, but they both knew it was just the beginning. Beyond the burning path, the trees stood still and silent. Not even the wind dared to move. The deeper they went, the more the world felt wrong. Time slowed. Colors faded. And somewhere far below their feet, a rhythm pulsed, steady and dark. Like the earth was breathing, or waiting. Eloisa pressed the Mutya close again, but this time it didn't pulse with power. It was trembling, like it was afraid. They pushed on, following the faint trail of symbols carved into the bark of old trees, guides left by Oppo Daggett long ago. He had warned them the deeper parts of the forest were older than even the first prayers, places where the land remembered things too dark to name. Then the twist came. It started small. Mina began to slow down. Her breathing changed. Heavier. Uneven. "Are you okay?" Eloisa asked. Mina nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." But something in her eyes, it was off. Eloisa tried to ignore it. They had no time to rest. The ritual site was close now. She could feel it, like heat behind a wall. And with every step, the presence of the Amino grew thicker, like shadows brushing against her skin. Then, out of nowhere, Mina stopped walking. Eloisa turned. "Mina." Her friend stood stiff, one hand clutching her stomach. Then she dropped the torch and whispered, "I'm sorry." Before Eloisa could react, Mina lunged, faster than she ever had before, slamming Eloisa to the ground, blade aimed at her chest. "Mina!" she screamed, kicking her off. Mina growled, low and unfamiliar. Her face changed, subtle at first. Eyes too black, teeth just slightly sharper. No, not Mina. The real Mina was still there, but something else was inside now. "I told you," the voice said, layered with two tones, Mina's and something deeper. The Amino already touched her. "We marked her when she entered the forest." Eloisa crawled back, gripping the Mutya. "No, you're lying." "We don't lie," the voice said. "We feed, and she was the closest to you." Suddenly, Mina's body shook. Her hands trembled, and for a brief moment, her real self broke through. "Eloisa, help me, please." Then the shadow inside took over again, and Mina collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Eloisa wanted to scream, wanted to tear the forest apart. She should have known. The Amino weren't just monsters in the dark. They were tricksters, manipulators. And they didn't just fight with claws. They used love, trust, weakness. She had brought Mina here, believing they could fight together. But the enemy had known that too. They had turned her strength into a trap. Tears welled in Eloisa's eyes. "Why her?" she whispered. A voice echoed back, not from Mina, but from somewhere above. The trees, the sky. "Because you wouldn't break alone." Then the forest shifted. The ground beneath her feet split, revealing a staircase of bone and earth, spiraling down into darkness. The entrance to the ritual site. She had no choice now. Mina was too weak to continue. Whatever was inside her, if it stayed long enough, would eat away at her soul. Maybe forever. Eloisa had to finish what they started. She laid her friend gently on the moss, surrounded her with salt from the charm Oppo Daga gave, and whispered one last promise. I'll come back. I'll save you. I swear it. Then she descended. The staircase seemed endless. Each step echoed with whispers, not from Amino this time, but from her own blood. Her ancestors, spirits trapped in time. Some wept, some screamed, some begged her to turn back. You're not ready. You'll awaken what we sealed. There is no victory at the bottom. Still, Eloisa pressed on. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Her breath turned to mist. The Mutya pulsed again, stronger now. Not from power, but warning. She was nearing the core, the heart of the darkness. And then, at the base of the stairs, she saw it. The ritual chamber. It wasn't a room. It was a living wound. A hollow beneath the earth, filled with roots like ribs and blood-red stones pulsing like a heart. In the center, a pool of black water bubbling silently. And surrounding it, 7 figures in cloaks made of bone and ash. The Amino elders. They didn't move. They didn't speak. But they felt her. One raised its head slowly, and from beneath the hood, Eloisa saw not a face, but a mirror. Her own face. You've come, it said, voice soft as death. The gate is ready. She stepped forward, gripping the Mutya, blade drawn. I won't let you finish the ritual. You already have, the mirror said. You stepped into the wound. That was the final offering. Eloisa froze. No, but the others nodded in unison. You were never the protector, they said together. You were the key, and that's when she saw it. The pool of black water started to rise. Not splash, not spill, but rise upward, forming a shape. A body, her twin, but not the one she saw in her mother's memories. This was him, changed, twisted, formed in darkness, wearing the cracked Mutya around his neck. You left me, he whispered. I didn't even know you existed, Eloisa said, trembling. But I knew you, he replied. Every pain you felt, I felt deeper. Every night you cried, I screamed louder. The earth began to shake. Stones fell from the root walls. The Amino began chanting. The gate was opening, and the key was already inside. Eloisa's legs nearly gave out. Everything, her pain, her training, her hopes, had been leading her not to stop the ritual, but to complete it by bringing her blood back together. And now she had only 2 choices: destroy the gate and herself with it, or join her twin and let the world fall. Eloisa couldn't breathe. Her twin stood before her, half flesh, half shadow, wearing the cracked Mutya that pulsed with the same rhythm as her own. Around them, the 7 Amino elders chanted louder, their voices rising like a storm trapped under the earth. The ritual was reaching its peak. The black pool now churned violently, glowing from beneath as if a second world was waking beneath the surface. You brought balance, her twin said, his voice echoing from the walls of the ritual chamber. 2 halves, finally reunited. You made the gate whole again. No, Eloisa whispered, gripping her Mutya with shaking hands. I didn't come here to open anything. I came to end this. Her twin tilted his head. Then why is your blood singing to mine? She took a step back, blade raised. You're not real. I am, he replied softly. I am every part of you that was left to die. I am every wound no one saw, every scream no one heard. The black water rose again, climbing up his back like wings of shadow. The symbols on the bone walls began to glow red, veins of fire spreading through the roots above them. The Amino had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The final heir had returned to complete what was never finished. But something in Eloisa began to crack, not out of fear but truth. This wasn't just about her power. It was about her choice. Her twin was right. She did carry darkness, pain, rage, but so what? Everyone did. The difference was she didn't give in to it. Not when her mother turned away. Not when Mina was taken. Not when the Amino tried to poison her soul. She took one deep breath and stepped into the center of the chamber, Mutya in one hand, dagger in the other. The chanting stopped. Even the earth held still. "I'm not your key," she said to the elders. "And I'm not your gate." Her twin smile faltered. "You are, Eloisa. You carry the blood of both light and shadow. Only you can open the path." "No," she whispered again. "Only I can close it." Then she drove the blade through her palm and let her blood fall into the pool. It hissed on contact, burning like acid. The Amino screamed. Her twin stumbled back as the black water recoiled from her blood. The glowing roots above began to fade, flickering like dying stars. The pool began to sink. But it wasn't over yet. Her twin roared, his body shifting, growing larger, more monstrous. Wings of smoke, hands of fire, eyes like hollow moons. "You would choose them?" he growled. "The ones who hurt you? The ones who feared you?" "I choose me," she said through gritted teeth. Then he attacked. Eloisa dodged the first blow, barely. The ground cracked under the impact, dust flying through the chamber like ash. She rolled, came up fast, and threw the Mutya into the air. It hovered above them, glowing so brightly it lit up the deepest corners of the chamber. Her twin screamed, blinded, and in that moment, she remembered something Apo Daggett once told her. The Mutya does not give you power. It only reveals what you already have. She reached out, and the fire inside her finally rose. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a curse. It was her. All the strength she built from every moment she chose to survive when the world tried to break her. The light that burst from her chest was pure, golden white, radiating through her scars, her blood, her grief. She screamed, not in pain but in release. The Amino elders turned to flee, but it was too late. The roots collapsed. The pool solidified into stone, and one by one, the cloaked figures vanished into smoke. Her twin tried to hold on, clawing toward her, pleading now, "Don't leave me behind." Eloisa stared at him, her mirror, her shadow, the version of her shaped by hate. And for one last moment, she felt pity. "I'm sorry you were alone," she said, "but I'm not anymore." Then she pressed her bleeding hand to his chest. His body cracked like porcelain and shattered. Everything went quiet. The chamber dimmed. The Mutya floated down gently into her palm, still warm. The wound beneath the earth was sealed. She didn't know how long she stood there, breathing hard, covered in ash and light. But when she finally climbed back up the spiral path, the forest had changed. The fog had lifted. The trees breathed again. Birds chirped. The wind moved. And Mina was awake. She ran to Eloisa, half laughing, half sobbing. "I saw it," she said. "I felt it. Whatever you did down there, he's gone. They're gone." Eloisa hugged her tightly, her whole body shaking. "I thought I lost you." "Not a chance," Mina whispered. "I'm too stubborn." They walked back together, hand in hand, the forest clearing before them. And just as they reached the mango tree where it all began, a soft voice echoed from the trees. But this one didn't feel dark. It felt familiar. "Child of the wave, the seal is strong, but the sea never sleeps." Eloisa turned toward the voice. Apo Daggett stood there, older than before, his body faint like mist. "You didn't survive this to become a weapon," he said. "You survived to remember." "Remember what?" He pointed to her heart. "That you were never just blood and fate. You were always a choice." Then he smiled and vanished into the wind. The battle was over. The gate was sealed. But as Eloisa stood beneath the rising sun, the Mutya cool in her hand, she knew one truth remained. The darkness didn't end tonight. It waited. And she would wait too, with a blade in her hand and fire in her soul. Weeks passed. The forest was quiet again. No more whispers in the trees. No extranjero reflections. No screams at night. People in town began to breathe normally. Chickens laid eggs again. The priest returned to the chapel, and the river cleared itself like it had been rinsed from within. But Eloisa, she was not the same. Not anymore. The Mutya no longer glowed. It rested cold now, worn around her neck like a memory. A reminder, not of power, but of everything it cost. Mina had healed. Slowly, the mark the Amino left in her spirit had faded, thanks to Apo Daggit's final blessing, left behind in the wind as a song only Eloisa could hear. The old man had vanished as quietly as he had arrived. Some believed he was never real, just an echo of the forest. But Eloisa knew better. The townspeople began to speak of her differently. Before, they looked at her with fear, curiosity, or pity. Now, they bowed their heads with respect. She hated it, because they didn't see the full truth. They didn't see what she had almost become. They didn't know she had looked at the end of the world and recognized herself in it. One day, her mother spoke. It was the first time in weeks. They were sitting by the edge of their hut. The sky was orange, the kind of quiet evening that usually brings peace. But for Eloisa, peace was a stranger she hadn't met yet. Her mother looked at her with tired, older eyes. "I thought killing what was inside you would protect you," she said. Eloisa stayed silent. "But now I see all I ever did was plant more fear." She reached out, touching Eloisa's wrist lightly. "I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Not really. But it was something." Eloisa looked up at the sky. "I don't hate you," she said. "But I don't know how to love you either." Her mother nodded. "Maybe we can start again. A little at a time." Eloisa didn't answer. But this time, she didn't pull away either. In the days that followed, Eloisa found herself drawn to the forest again. Not out of fear, but memory. She walked the paths where she and Mina used to play, where the mirror creature first smiled, where her twin was born and buried in shadow. She didn't go near the ritual chamber. The place was sealed, forgotten by the world above. But sometimes she still felt him, her twin, not as a threat, but as a feeling, like someone watching her from behind a tree. Quiet, waiting, not for revenge, but release. There were nights she'd sit under the mango tree and talk to him, even if no one answered. "I wish you had lived too," she would say. "Maybe we could have saved each other." One afternoon, while helping Mina gather herbs by the river, a small boy from the village came running. "Someone's been digging behind the chapel," he said, breathless. They found bones. Old ones. Eloisa and Mina exchanged a look. Not fear, not surprise, just understanding. The dead were never truly gone in their town. That night, they went together, just the two of them, no blades, no charms. Behind the chapel, buried beneath roots and damp earth, they found a sack. Inside, bones, animal teeth, and a rusted ring that bore the symbol of the Amino elders. A warning? A leftover? Or something preparing to rise again? Eloisa buried it deeper this time, in salt and stone, wrapped in prayer. Then she whispered, "Not today." The weeks turned to months, and life moved forward. The town returned to its rhythm. Children played again near the mango trees. Fishermen told stories at dusk, many about her, though they always changed the details. Some said she fought a giant snake with fire in her hands. Others said she died and came back, a spirit reborn. One old man swore she turned into a bird and flew away. Eloisa just smiled whenever she heard them. Let them tell their stories. Let them imagine strength however they needed. She had her own version, quiet, slower, more painful, but true. One evening, as the sun dipped low and gold spilled over the hills, Eloisa and Mina sat again by their old tree. the same tree where all their wishes used to hang on red ribbons. Mina tied a new one to the branch. Eloisa raised an eyebrow. Still making wishes? Me not getting it. Some of them come true. Eloisa held the old Mutya in her hand. It had cracks now. It didn't shine, but when she pressed it to her chest, she felt warmth. Not magic, not fire, just a heartbeat. Her own. Maybe, she whispered, this was never about power. Mina knew did. Maybe it was about remembering who we are. The wind picked up, soft, kind, full of life. And for the first time in a long while, Eloisa didn't feel hunted or chosen or cursed. She just felt human. The darkness had not disappeared. It never would, but neither would the light. And as long as she remembered that, she would never walk in fear again. Final line. The shadows may wait forever, but so will she. End of story. Thank you for watching. If this story haunted your thoughts or touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real horror fantasy tales from the deep shadows of the Philippines.